Donations to your church can come in many shapes and sizes, but they can also come with multiple purposes. One donation contributes to the building fund, another helps fund missions, which is why it is imperative that we understand the basics of fund accounting. You see, not every dollar in your church is equal. Church finances are not handled like any other business. It takes someone who understands what fund accounting is to recognize that every dollar has a purpose, and you must understand how to keep those dollars separated, or you could be facing legal issues. So I want to introduce the concept of fund accounting in today's video. This is episode 2 of our budget series, essentially where we're creating a church budget template that you can use, but we're digging through each of the bigger concepts so that you can understand and have confidence in your church's budget as we work through. So if that sounds like something that you want to check more out on, check out our channel page and you can see all of the previous releases, and you can subscribe for our future releases as we continue to work through the series. Leave a comment if you're just finding this channel and finding it helpful, and let's dig in. My name is Michael, and I have been involved in budgeting both for churches and for religious nonprofits, both for spenders and as an administrator as well. And so this is a process that I am familiar with, that I'm excited to share a little bit more about with you as we continue to go through this budget series. So in today's video, we're going to talk about fund accounting. We're going to talk about how many funds your church should have. And then at the end, we will talk about the difference between a restricted fund and a designated fund. So first up, what is fund accounting? What makes funds restricted and how we can spend them? Gifts and contributions to nonprofits, which includes churches, are given for a particular purpose. That is to say that when someone who gives to your church gives money, that money is set aside for a particular purpose, and that purpose is determined by the giver. Now, in most cases today, that right is waived by the giver when they just give to our general operating fund, in which case the church now has the right to disperse the funds as it sees fit. So we're talking payroll, electric bill, things like that. However, it's not uncommon for gifts and contributions to still be given today with restrictions. You use these funds towards our building fund, use these funds to support our mission fund, use these funds to support our senior adult ministry, so on and so on. The institution, your church, has a legal obligation to use those funds as restricted by the giver, which is why it's called a restricted fund. The funds are given with a restriction by the giver. So that's the concept of fund accounting. How many funds then, this is our second point, how many funds should your church have? I used to work for a church that had somewhere around 20 funds, 75% of which hadn't been touched in the last 10, 15 years. I'm thinking of one fund, it was like a drama fund or something, and the church hadn't put on a play in, I think, 11, 12, 13 years, and there was $27 left in the drama fund that hadn't been touched. The church has a legal obligation to spend that money to contribute towards its drama ministry, of which it didn't even have at the point. So in short, how many funds should your church have? The short answer is as few as possible. I mean, we're talking bare bones here. In addition to our general operating fund, maybe we're talking about a building fund, a capital expenditure fund, certain fundraisers, a missions fund, things like that. So why is that? Why should we keep our funds as small as possible? Number one, it is an accounting nightmare for your bookkeeper. Whoever is putting in expenses is constantly moving money, tracking balances, and reporting totals. It is a nightmare. But secondly, and more importantly, I think, an abundance of funds can create an environment that does not trust the mission and the vision of the church. Now stick with me through this little bit of church politics here, but someone can not trust the vision and the mission of the church and yet still give to its side ministries. We want our givers to give in confidence. If you're not confident in the vision and the mission of the church, then don't give to it. Simple as that. which is really just kind of a more harsh, but really just a reverse way of saying it a little softer. We want our givers to, first of all, know the mission and the vision of our church and have confidence that it's the right mission and it's the right vision. And so they willingly participate in that vision. They see what we're doing, they want to be a part of it, and they help us get there, both through their time, their resources, and their efforts. We don't want to create an environment of distrust. We want our givers to faithfully and generously give if they are confident in what our church is doing. And so if you give to your church, which means that hopefully you trust and you are confident in the vision and the mission of the church as presented in its budget, which is why I think churches should be transparent when it comes to budgeting and spending for their church. Lay your cards on the table and invite your members to help support what you are doing. But say to them, if you give to the church, this is how your money is going to be spent. Be transparent with your budget. Finally, let's talk about, this is a little bonus section here, let's talk about the difference between a restricted fund and a designated fund. Everything we've talked about has given us a framework by which to approach this question. Simply put, a restricted fund is a pool of gifts and contributions that have come with a restriction by the giver. The church has an obligation to spend that money according to the restriction by the giver. They can't dip into the missions fund in order to pay the electricity bill. Conversely, a designated fund is pretty similar. It's money that's designated for a particular purpose, but the distinction comes as to who sets the designation or the restriction. If it's not the giver in this case, then it's the institution, which means that the church has set aside money for some big expenditure, such as saving up for an audit or saving up for a new church building or like a capital expenditure contribution, things like that. It's money set aside by the church. So it's a small distinction made when the gift is given. Either someone gives for a particular purpose or they give to the general operations of the church, but it makes a huge difference when the money is spent. And we want our church members to be on board, to be willing and generous participants in that vision because they trust and are confident in our church's leadership. So that is episode 2 of our budget series. We talked about fund accounting, designated and restricted gifts. In our next video, we are going to still kind of talk about the giving side of things, the income side of things in building our budget template. We're going to answer the question, how big should our budget be? Should we just kind of copy and paste from last year, or should we increase it by X%? I'm excited. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.